Hey everybody. So for today's movie review, I'm going to talk about the latest Guillermo del Toro film, Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim is a film that is supposedly the film that will resurrect the Kaiju genre, which are basically films about giant monsters like Godzilla and King Kong. In this film, you guys, there's a portal that's cracked open in the ocean, and it's a portal between dimensions. And what happens is, because that's open, these monsters from this other dimension known as Kaijus have invaded Earth. They're destroying everything. It's been going on for a very long time now. And so Earth's response to this invasion was to create these giant uh, robots that can fight off these creatures that are really big, called Jaegers. And it looks like Jaeger, but it's pronounced Jaegers. And what they will do is they will fight off these monsters. And while this is going on, the people of Earth have to figure out a way to close this portal so that none of these monsters can continue to enter Earth. And so the film basically centers around two co-pilots, a guy who's been in this Jaeger program for a while. He has all these captains, people who support him, who really strongly believe that he should be one of two co-pilots, since each Jaeger requires two co-pilots who could really function this machine, who could really fight these monsters off. And throughout the beginning of the film, they're trying to find him a co-pilot because there's all these situations that happened. He originally loses his first partner, which you'll see throughout the film, and so they're looking for this new partner for him to have for this machine, so they can use the Jaeger again. And there's several Jaegers going around. Each country has one, and this centers around the U.S.'s Jaeger called the Gypsy Danger. And so they try to find his co-pilot. They eventually do, and basically throughout the rest of the film, they have to fight off these monsters as planned. And because the Gypsy Dangers is apparently one of the few Jaegers to not be a digital Jaeger, like it can function analog like, and I guess it has some type of nuclear ability that none of the others Jaegers were able to develop and form into their system. So it's humanity's last hope for uh, getting these monsters away from Earth, killing them off, and hopefully getting Earth back on track from all this destruction that these kaiju have caused throughout the years. Since this film takes place about over like a 5 or 6 year period, if not longer. Um, so Pacific Rim, you guys, I really enjoyed this film. It's definitely a good Guillermo del Toro film. He's directed a lot of other really good stuff. This includes Pan's Labyrinth, and for some, that includes the Hellboy films. I wasn't big on the Hellboy films, but I know a lot of people really enjoyed those. So, for the positives and negatives, I thought the film had a great sense of CGI and action scenes. This is a great film to go see if you like CGI and if you like, action scenes. It's just a very well done action summer blockbuster. There's a lot of epic monster and robot moments in this film. So if you like monster movies, if you like robot movies, if you like kaiju films like Godzilla and King Kong, this film will be very epic. It's definitely a big, big monster movie. I liked how the film incorporated the whole kaiju aspect into our reality, how these kaiju creatures could actually potentially exist within our reality. I like how kind of our society accepted them after a while. They made merchandise about them, and it kind of made sense why people celebrate Godzilla and King Kong and Gamera and all these other big kaiju creatures that we've had several films of throughout the years. It's kind of the film kind of has meaning as to why that might happen if such an event like the Pacific Rim movie were to occur. Um, Charlie Day and Idris Elba have great performances in this film. Charlie Day really brings a great character actor performance in here, and Idris Elba has a very powerful captain like performance in this film that I really enjoyed, and it really represents kind of how he's growing as an actor from Thor and Prometheus. And I know a lot of people didn't like Ghost Rider 2, but he was in that one also. Um, this film had an interesting sense of interesting background stories and interesting motivations for the lead characters. That's mostly for the lead characters because I'll get to a flaw here in a second. Um, but yeah, the backstories you hear, the background stories you hear for the lead characters of the film, like the Charlie Hunnam character and this Chinese girl who's very much a part of this Jaeger program, and even parts of Idris Elba's life as this captain. There was just some very interesting stories here, and you could definitely tell Guillermo del Toro was a part of this film because he knows that with a monster movie like this, you just can't have monsters and robots fighting the whole movie. You got to have background with some of these characters, and with the lead characters, I think that works very well. Um, for some of the negatives, you guys, there was some storyline issues I had. It kind of had this film kind of had like an on and off feeling of storyline. Like there'd be scenes where it'd be strictly storyline for about 20 minutes, then it'd be strictly monsters and robots fighting for 30 minutes, then another 20 minutes of storyline, just strictly that, then another 30 minutes. So it was kind of like this on and off feeling, and it kind of got annoying after a while. I almost wish that Guillermo del Toro incorporated the two rather than separate them throughout the film. I think if the film kind of did both action and storyline at the same time, like what films like Avengers haven't been able to do, Avengers, um, I think this film would have definitely had a much better balance, and it would have incorporated both storyline and action scenes very well together, so they both gel together, rather than just having two separate ideas that keep bouncing off each other throughout the film, and they would have came together as one. Um, and also, sometimes I feel like there's not enough storyline. Like I would have liked to have learned more about Idris Elba's character. His nose kept bleeding throughout the film. They explained it a little bit, but not quite enough to make me say, "Oh, they explained it a lot." Um, and I know this film was definitely meant to be about monsters and about robots, but I don't think that should be an excuse for having unanswered questions kept unanswered as people leave the film. Because I did have a lot of things about the film where it's just like, well, they could have answered that, and I would have liked to see more reasoning and explanation behind that certain thing. And I think some other people are going to feel that way as they watch this film. Um, some of the action scene was a little bit too dark because there's so many scenes in this film that take place at nighttime on like a rainy night. It's kind of hard to see the action scenes at times, specifically when Del Toro gets very close to the robot or very close to the monster, and basically all you're seeing is kind of like a monster's head here and maybe the robot back here, and it kind of gets very hard to see those action scenes when they come so close to the screen that all we see is kind of a close up of the monster's skin or a close up of the robot. Um, and I think it would have been easier if maybe Del Toro put the camera back a little bit more on certain scenes because there was just some scenes here where it was just so hard to see what was going on. It also could have been a lighting issue. I don't know if they had problems with lighting throughout the film. I don't know if they had to CGI the whole scene with the monsters and the robots fighting or what the deal was with lighting, but it was some scenes in here that were really too dark. They might as well just shut off the theater room lights because, I mean, or even the background light of the theater room because, like, you could just barely see some of the things going on in this film when it came to the really dark environment scenes. Um, I also felt there was some one-dimensional characters. This specifically goes towards, this is what I was trying to talk about earlier, the non-lead characters, like the supporting roles, the minor characters. There's just some characters in here that feel like they just exist just to push the story along, or that some scenes don't feel too empty. And that's fine, but I think it would have been nice if I could have left the film saying, okay, well, this character had this, his background was about this, his motivation is this. Because there's just some characters in here where they just exist just to be there and just to fill up space on the screen. And I would have liked to have seen, more reasoning behind some of the characters, a little bit more background on some of them. I know Guillermo del Toro can't cover every character in the film on screen, but there are just some characters that really don't feel developed enough. And I think if they were developed, I could have left the film with a much better and more positive feeling about the film. And there could have been more to the film than just, well, it was a great monsters and robots movie. So overall, guys, I give Pacific Rim an 8.5 out of 10. It's a great film. If you like monster movies, if you like robot movies, this is definitely one you can't miss. It's a great film. A great example of CGI action scenes. And I also think this film does a good job of avoiding Michael Bayism. So it's not just a 2 hour action scene. There's actually a bit of storyline in here that is pretty effective. Um, and it's a good example of we need more directors like Guillermo del Toro because they have a better sense of having storyline and action scenes in the film rather than just action scenes. So Pacific Rim, I really enjoy it, you guys. I really hope this brings back the kaiju genre because it was gone for a long time. I think the last kaiju film or kaiju related film we've had since this film was Cloverfield with that paranormal activity like Godzilla film that came out a couple of years ago. And I would like to see more films like this. I think the monster movie genre is kind of dying out, and I would like to see it come back. So Pacific Rim, 8.5 out of 10 for me. It's a great film, but there's a few flaws about it that might keep you from loving it the way it could have been. But overall, it's a great film, and you shouldn't miss this one because it's a lot of fun.